contract law requirements. We're going to hit some of those requirements in this video. Come along. Waivers are contracts, therefore they can't go against public policy. Going against public policy in waivers usually consists of the parties having unequal bargaining power or the agreement being unconscionable altogether. Waivers also require something of value exchange between both parties. Waivers usually word this as, in consideration for allowing me to participate in this activity, I waive my right to fill in the blank, whatever the activity may be. Now Tyler's going to talk to you about parties in a waiver.
Thanks, Wes. All right, guys, so I'm going to talk a little bit about parties to the contract. There's three major parties in a contract. The first one is parties relinquishing the rights. And what that does is that relinquishes every right to the provider within the contract or the waiver. Number two is parties protected by the waiver. So within that one, the waiver or the contract has to specify exactly who is protected, how they're protected, and under what circumstances that they are protected. And then the third one is parties who don't have the capacity to contract, and that can be anything under the influence of drugs or alcohol if they're not able to sign or duly know exactly what they're doing, and also if they don't have the mental capacity. So now we're going to talk a little bit about minors and waivers. The general rule is that a waiver is a contract. The minor cannot be bound to that contract if only he signs. So in order to compensate for that, there's three strategies to get that to where the minor is bound to the contract. Number one is your simple parental waiver. That's just where the parent or the legal guardian signs on behalf of the minor. Number two is parental indemnity. That's just where the parents promise to pay back for any losses that may cause during the activity or whatever's going on. And number three is arbitrary agreement. All right, so now that we've talked a little bit about parties of the contract and minors, I'll pass it over to Marquez. He's going to talk about forms of waivers.
Thanks, Tyler. Now we're going to talk about the format of the waivers. Waivers are generally found in one of four formats. The first thing is a standalone document, which is the only function of the document is provide liability protection for the service provider. The second format is within another document such as membership agreement, form, or rental agreement. And the third format is a group waiver, which generally includes a waiver at the top of a sheet on which several parties have to sign. And the fourth one is the disclaimer of liability, often found on the back of tickets and sometimes even in the form of a posted sign. Also, a disclaimer is a statement asserting that the provider is not responsible for any injuries that happen during that particular activity. And then now I'm going to talk about the participant agreement. Relatively a new concept of liability and protection and much more than a simple waiver. The five differences are designed to improve the rapid understanding between provider and the participant. Also increases the understanding and the rewards of activity risk and participating in the activity. Also prepares them mentally for any discomforts, making legal actions likely. And also allows participants to make more informed decisions as to the participant. And then lastly, it provides much more broader range for protection for the people.
Now on to administrating the waiver. This is an important process because this is what protects the provider from liability. And to ensure the waiver, there are a few guidelines. First, you want to be straightforward in explaining. Educate your staff about what they need to tell the participant. Be sure to allow participant time to read and understand the information. If it is a group waiver, explain to the group or to the person that is administrating the group waiver. Do not allow the signer to cross out any parts of the waiver. And in cases where there is a fee paid in advance, be sure to include a refund policy. And always be sure to retain all waivers for existence, or for as an example of a waiver. I hope y'all learned a lot about waivers, right, Marquez?
Right.